go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon podcast. My guest today, Colleen O'Neill, is a product strategist at Bits in Glass. Colleen, how are you?
Great. How are you?
No complaints. Colleen, let's get right straight into it. How can automation assist companies that are struggling to fill vacancies? We are looking at the situation where everyone's talking about this great resignation coming and posts are being redundant. And there's a big workforce issue in the States at the moment. What is the automation take here?
Yeah, I think, in order for companies to recognize how automation can help them, I think they need to figure out the return on investment if they do any type of automation. So, for example, in the US, it's hard to hire entry-level employees right now, right? Yeah. The company needs to understand the cost for those individuals, as well as assess the cost for automation and the long-term value, right? Because by no means, as a consulting company or as a product individual, do I believe companies should blindly automate just to fill a position.
Yeah. So coming in from a different angle, coming in from an ROI angle, let's say companies want to go that route, right? What would kind of the steps for them be to take to do that?
Yeah, I think, there are a lot of resources that do ROIs, if you Google how to find an ROI, you can do it that way. Of course, there's a lot of individuals that are great at accounting for other companies, and they could figure it out too. What long-term value, right? How much does it cost to hire that individual? How much do they cost? And then from there, what will automation cost? And, typically when you do automation, you can automate more than one role at a time, right? So that's something to consider as well. But as far as ROI goes, our company helps walk people through that process if they need it.
Yeah, well, it's a touchy subject because human emotions are there and we all have this fear, which brings me to my next point. When I was young, my favorite movie was The Terminator, right? And there was this system called Skynet, and it was this AI system, and it was on this. There was this fear that automation or AI was going to take over all our jobs, all our workforce, and didn't really happen, right? It was sort of like this this fear that we have that didn't materialize. So how has the human outlook on automation changed over the years?
Yeah, have you ever seen the movie I, Robot with Will Smith?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that movie. I remember seeing it when I was younger and I was terrified as well. So I can relate to that. I think, humans just want to be heard and they want to be appreciated, right? At the end of the day, as long as a company takes care of their employees and reassures them and truly treats them well, I don't think that there is really any true loss in automation, right? I think companies that may not take care of their employees well may endose fear into those employees, and it could be tragic for them. But I do think, it gets into human behavior, right? Human fear, whether those people feel valued by that company or not. And also too, people should be assured by leadership, hey, we're getting rid of the mundane data entry things you do so you can do better things that truly do help our company, right?
Yeah, so there is this notion that automation is actually helping us create new jobs and which will be more jobs. Is that something that you can safely say, or is that a misnomer?
Kind of a political question. I would say, I think that automation is helping build jobs that people actually want to do, that are truly career individuals.
Well, there you go.
So I think, the mundane data entry, the people that like that stuff, it eventually they're going to have to choose something different, right? Automation will start doing all of the mundane for people. So, if you build your career on that too, I think that's kind of a tricky subject.
Well, I mean, if you have to change with the times, you have to innovate, because if you're stagnant, then you will get left behind. That is the nature of tech. That is the nature of life, I guess. And speaking of that, let's look forwards a bit. Not too far, but some bigger trends emerging in automation that companies need to be aware of.
Yeah, I think, for me, I don't think of automation as its own. And I'm not sure, it's kind of split with companies, right? Whether they do or they don't think of it that way. I think it's, what are we trying to get done? Is that integration? Is that automation? What type of automation is that? If it's automation, if it's integration, what does that look like? Because I always have been, I guess, brain trained in tech and before tech to think of, okay, yes, we can decide on automation, but how do we decide on what type of automation, right? Is it true automation, robotic process, business process management? Is it integration instead of just automation? So it's a little complex.
Okay. Well, I mean, look, if you're going from that automation viewpoint, right, where you say it's complex, to me it means that we really don't know where we're going. It's into the unknown, right? But I mean, companies like Amazon, they sure have a very good grasp of where they're going, and my fear is that they are going to basically cannibalize the smaller companies that aren't maybe adopting automation and integration.
Yeah, and I think with Amazon, your question's a little tricky, right? Because if companies or individuals are looking around, I don't know if it necessarily helps give them context on how to truly be innovative, right? Because, like, for example, Amazon, everything they're doing is like nothing anyone has ever heard of, right?
Yeah.
Because they do what they believe is best. They hire great employees and they make sure that they're the innovator. With other companies that are following, if they're trying to, for example, if they're trying to duplicate what Amazon is doing right now, they might already be too far behind. However, I do agree with what you're saying, where people need some way to measure automation and to know, if they are being competitive and what automation means to them. And honestly, it kind of depends on the industry, right? I mean, for example, if you're a government, right, you're not really automating that much because you don't have as much budget or you don't have as many things that could be automated. Whereas banking is crazy right now. Like, we did a project just at a high level to where we could onboard customers. And we actually did it before COVID was even a thing, but online onboarding everything, you could manage your account. It's essentially so you can take the teller and the location out of the business directly, right? So, people can be self-sufficient, right? Because yes, people are afraid of AI, but people love to feel like they're independent, they're in control, they're self-sufficient, especially the newer generations. So
yeah, that's important for them. Speaking of COVID, did COVID help or hinder automation?
Yeah, I think
I'm throwing you with tricky questions.
Yeah, playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
I would say it helped companies realize where they had to innovate. It helped companies realize, like, if we don't work in this physical office in the future, what happens to our business? What happens to our operations, right? I think that is a good and bad thing, right? Because it did expose a lot of companies that weren't ready. But I will say that it is a good thing because now those companies recognize that and they're trying to be more innovative because they recognize that their company shouldn't be taken down based on location. And
I mean,
you know,
that's the whole work from home culture or remote working. I mean, and the benefits coming out of that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, in US, I'm not sure about anywhere else in US and Canada, but a lot of US and Canada employees don't want to go back, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, so that's a benefit. Colleen, before I let you leave, if the listeners want to connect with you and find out more what you're busy with, where can they find you?
Yeah, I think the best way to find me right now, which it seems like it changes daily, is probably on LinkedIn. Also, I have an email, colleen.o'neill@bitsandglass.com. You can find me there as well.
Thank you so much for joining us. To our listeners, peace, love, and prosperity. And we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.